You ever walk into a room and feel like the air gets heavier, like you know something's about to go down, but nobody else has caught on yet? That was me, that Thursday morning in the old courthouse over on Maple Street in Crestwood. Place smelled like burnt coffee and floor polish, and you could feel the history in those cold benches. Stories of folks who never got their shot, people who spoke up and got shut down. I sat quiet, just another woman in the crowd, hair pulled back, thrift shop blouse, watching the clock tick slow while the lawyers shuffled their papers and the judge pretended not to notice any of us. But that day was different. There was a police brutality case, the kind you hear about but never really expect to change anything. The accused? Officer Rick Landry. Everybody in town knew his type, swaggered around like the world owed him something. And when I got called up to the stand, he locked eyes with me, sneered, and said loud enough for half the room, "Hope you brought your green card, honey. Maybe you're here to clean, not testify." A couple folks snickered. Judge just kept reading his notes, nobody saying a word. That's the kind of silence you never get used to, no matter how many times it happens. But I didn't flinch, just stared back. I knew something he didn't. See, I wasn't there just as some random witness. My name's Erica Bell, and for almost a year, I'd been undercover, working with federal investigators, piecing together the puzzle of corruption that went a whole lot deeper than Officer Landry. What he didn't know was every nasty word, every sideways glance, every bit of his smug attitude was being watched, documented, ready to blow open at the right moment. I grew up right here in Crestwood. My mom cleaned the same courthouse floors at night, and I learned young that respect wasn't just handed out to people like us. I had to fight for every inch. You know what I mean? I'd seen how things really worked in those marble halls, who got breaks and who got buried, who the judges listened to and who they didn't even see. That's why when Rick tried to humiliate me, all he did was set off the next domino in a line he couldn't even see. I spent months gathering files, late nights with my little team, listening to whistleblowers, matching signatures, watching as Judge Pickens and Rick Landry passed off complaints, covered for each other, made dirty deals behind closed doors. I had people like Nina Torres, the prosecutor who was sick of watching her cases disappear, and Kenneth, the ex-cop who finally had enough and slipped me a drive full of evidence. We built it piece by piece, all while Rick strutted around thinking he owned the place. But I'll tell you, it wasn't easy. Some nights I sat in my apartment, staring at the ceiling, thinking about my cousin Deshawn, the one Rick put in juvie on trumped-up charges because he looked nervous. 14 months gone for nothing, and Rick never paid for it. Not until now. So when Nina handed the judge that thick envelope and the flash drive, I watched the color drain from Rick's face. They dimmed the lights, and suddenly the whole room was listening to his voice, loud and proud, saying things I wouldn't repeat at a family table, joking about how easy it was to lose a complaint, bragging about Judge Pickens having his back. There was no hiding it anymore. The jury looked stunned. Reporters went live. The judge tried to regain control, but everyone knew this was bigger than anyone thought. Nina stood up, steady as a rock, and said, "Your Honor, we request immediate detainment of Officer Landry and a federal investigation into Judge Pickens's conduct." That's when the agents walked in, All business, cuffs at the ready. Rick started begging, yelling, but nobody was listening. For the first time, he didn't control the room. And you know what? I looked at Judge Pickens, and he started rambling about pressure and politics, saying, "You don't understand what it's like." I leaned over and told him, "Then maybe you should never have worn the robe." Yeah, that happened. Outside, the news was already spreading. Folks cheered, some cried, others just watched in disbelief. But victory isn't always sweet. Within hours, the state attorney general, Langston, called me up, wanted to offer a deal, said I could run a new reform office if I dropped the case, let the system heal on its own, told me I could finally sit at the table. I said, I didn't come this far to ask permission. He didn't like that one bit. Then the threats started. Nasty calls, online rumors, pressure to quit. Rosa from my team came in one night, scared. "They're trying to get you off the case, Erica. They're saying you're too close. You have a conflict." I almost laughed. Funny how they never cared about conflict until the truth showed up. But we pushed back. Kenneth showed up with a wire recording of Langston himself, talking about how the public just needs a couple of convictions to believe the system works. That recording? It was the last nail. Langston resigned in disgrace, and the dominoes kept falling. The aftermath was wild. Cases reopened, officers and judges removed. My phone blowing up with calls from reporters, activists, old friends. I didn't take the TV offers or write a book. I took a quiet job running a little civil rights office. No fancy marble, just a blue sign on the door and a team that actually listened. Sometimes I'd get a letter slipped under the door. "You gave me my voice back." That's what matters. But some nights, I still wonder, was it enough? Does one person's fight really change a system that doesn't want to be changed? Or do we just push the boulder a little farther, hoping someone else picks it up next? So let me ask you, have you ever felt invisible, told to stay quiet, just because your truth was too much for somebody in power? Would you risk everything to speak up, or let it slide to keep the peace? Tell me in the comments. Tell your story. Challenge mine. Did I do the right thing? Or did I just start a bigger fight? Because, honestly, sometimes the only thing that really changes the world is when ordinary people refuse to stay quiet.